All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Greene Space. It's so good to see you. Happy Thursday, one day from Friday. Or as young people say, because my 13-year-old told me I'm not young anymore, happy Friday tomorrow. Okay. So good evening. My name is Christina Newman-Scott. I'm the executive director here at the Greene Space, which is part of WNYC, WQXR. Who here is here for the first time? Hold on. Look here. You have to come back. We have to talk. After the show, let's talk out there because you're going to love it and you're going to want to come back. And if you like public media, public radio, do you appreciate that? Right? This is the home for, while we are on air on WNYC with the Brian Lair and all the things you love with Alison Stewart, this is where we are live on stage and on screen. So if you like to feel the energy of people, we bring radio to life for you. So tonight, as you know, we are all here for Theatre of War. And Theatre of War presents community-specific theatre projects that address pressing public health and social issues. The co-founder, Brian Dories, who's here with us, and has done a phenomenal job. Did a 6-part residency at the Greene Space in 2018, and we are so thrilled to have him back. And let me tell you something about Brian. I'm Jamaican, so I'm sorry, I go in and out of patois, so just work with me. Brian, pre-pandemic, understood what it meant to have a space like the Greene Space, which he says is hardwired in a way that is able to connect with people all over the world, right? Before the pandemic, when Zoom then blew up, Brian was already capitalizing and curious about how we might connect with each other globally using technology. And this place does that. And we do that by honoring the creative spirit and honoring the artists and centering their voices. So thank you, Brian, for all that you've done here to grow with us and for us to learn from you. So it's really awesome to have you back. Now, let me tell you, yes, thank you. I'm going to tell you 2 quick things before I turn it to Brian. So coming up at the Greene Space, for all y'all hands are going to talk to me later, May 24th at 7 p.m., we're celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month with a classical concert featuring Grammy Award-winning artists and tastings by Pearl River Mart. Come to that. Go to our website, thegreenspace.org. And then on May 25th, we're working hard, people. Don't say we don't work hard. We work hard. On May 25th at 7 p.m., we're going to have an amazing award-winning reproductive health journalist, Rachel Weiss, and artist Sophia Wallace, who will squash misconceptions about the clitoris, I'm serious, I'm going to tell you why, and take you on a wild ride into your body and intimate self-knowledge. Let me just tell you this. More than 50% of us have it, but it's not in medical journals. Excuse me, why? Don't we know what it looks like? Why? We're going to talk about it, May 25th. I'm glad to be with you all. Welcome to the Greene Space. And please join me in welcoming Brian Dories.
Thank you so much, Christina. It's an absolute honor to be back at the Greene Space. And thank you for saying clitoris and for just moving the walls of the room back and saying we can hold anything here, and also acknowledging our work here. It's feels like coming home, not just because this is the first in-person event of this particular series. Over the last 14 months, we presented 10 performances of the Nurse Antigone and variations of it on Zoom for more than 10,000 people from more than 68 countries, a huge number of nurses tuning in and participating and coming into dialogue about the past, present, and future of nursing. And this is the final one of the series made possible by the Lori M. Tisch Illumination Fund. They're here with us tonight, and we want to thank them. And the Mellon Foundation for their support of our digital work. They've been incredible supporters as well. But we're so excited to be here with you finally in person to have this dialogue together, and also with several thousand people who are tuning in from all over the planet and will be participating in a 360-degree conversation with us in this space, the Greene Space. We had those 6 performances here in 2018 where we brought together gang-affiliated youth with WQXR listeners, and we brought together formerly incarcerated individuals, people who'd been through the criminal justice system with WNYC listeners, and we had dialogue with veterans and with people who had experienced homelessness, and now we're here to center the perspectives of nurses. And it's such an honor to have so many nurses in the room. We have nurses from all over New York City and Long Island with us here today. I'm sure many of you know that this is National Nurses Month, and so we're doing this in honor of National Nurses Month. Of course, every month should be Nurses Month, not just May. But we're so delighted to be back here, taking it to the next level. Our first event on Zoom when the pandemic hit in May of 2020, we had 15,000 people from 48 countries, or from more than 48 countries, join us, and we knew that we'd stumbled across a really powerful new technology and form, and we need partners like the Greene Space and like the Illumination Fund and Mellon and others to help us take this to the next level. And this is the culmination of many months of work, and it's so exciting to be back in a space that can actually facilitate the exchange we're going to have tonight. So thank you all for coming. I got to get through some thanks. This is a culminating event, and I apologize in advance, but this is celebratory to be able to say these words. I want to thank the Greene Space, where Theater of War Productions found a home and has now come home in 2023. The Johns Hopkins School of Nursing, one of our core partners. The Johns Hopkins Berman Institute of Bioethics. The Resilient Nurses Initiative of Maryland as well. These are our core partners. I also want to thank some of our host partners over the last year. The Greater New York City Black Nurses Association. We know we have some folks here. We have New York City Health and Hospitals, the Organization of Nurse Leaders, New Jersey Hospice and Palliative Care Nurses Association, the National Student Nurses Association, the American Association of Critical Care Nurses, the National Association of Community Health Centers, Sigma, DAV, and the Susie King Taylor Center for Jubilee. These are just some of the partners over the last year that have helped us bring this project to fruition. We have boundless gratitude to them and to our supporters for making tonight possible, and also to our partners, both here in the room and on Zoom. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge Theater of War Productions company manager and digital producer Marjolaine Goldsmith, who's the architect of our work on Zoom, who made tonight's work possible and all of the last 3 years of programming possible, and also our community liaison, Dominic DuPont, who's here in the corner, who'll be running the mic with me tonight. Theater of War Productions is a small but mighty 3 of us, and we move mountains. Of course, we have 250 actors who are part of our company as well, who always say yes when they get the text. Can you, while you're working, as Atu was today, on Hamlet in the Park with Kenny Leon, can you come straight from rehearsal to perform for us tonight? And each one of them has a story, and also the nurses who've joined us, who are part of our nurse chorus, which I'll introduce in just a second. We've had dozens of nurses from across the country participate as readers and performers in this project. Our boundless gratitude goes to them as well. Before going any further, I just want to mention, for those of you who are on Zoom, tonight's event is being captioned in English, and you can access those captions at the bottom of your screen by clicking on the captioning button. And now it gives me immense pleasure to introduce, well, actually, before I get to that, let me just say a couple more things, sorry. For those of you who've been with us for the last year, you know that making mistakes is the center of our model. So sometimes I just throw one in at the beginning of the event just to set the tone for what's about to come. I want to acknowledge a couple other things beyond the captions. One is that we have partnered over the last year with an organization called CCA that has offered emotional support services to nurses who participated in the Nurse Antigone. And I just want to, for those on Zoom, for the nurses in the room, if you're a nurse and for immediate support regarding your emotional experience with the performance or anything you're dealing with today, you can call 855-282-8025 to speak with a professional mental health counselor between now and midnight tonight. And if you're a nurse and you want non-urgent psychological well-being needs met, you can email your inquiries to Nurse Antigone at ccainc.com. Those are being dropped in the chat right now, but we're grateful to our partners at CCA for offering these services to nurses across the country. And now it gives me immense pleasure to introduce the goddess of nursing, we were saying in rehearsal today, Cinda Rushton, who's our partner, who made all of this happen, who doggedly stayed after Theater of War Productions and me. Cinda is a nurse, obviously, but she's also an ethicist and a leader in the field of nursing and of moral repair. And we're so excited to have her with us in the flesh. And she's going to say a few sort of framing words about tonight's culminating finale. Cinda, over to you.
Thank you, Brian. And thank you for saying yes, because there are 4 million nurses in this country, and our healthcare system is unsustainable without a healthy workforce. And the time is really urgent, because many of you in this room will eventually need a nurse. You know, once a diagnosis is made, what you need is nursing care. Amen. So this whole series is about how we offer to our colleagues, hopefully a little lifeline to remember why we do this work and to bring out of the shadows into the light the reality of what it means to be a nurse now. And hopefully to dismantle some of the false images about nurses. We are a very competent, skilled group. We are researchers, we are clinicians. We care for people at all stages of birth to death. And it is because of that courage and the compassion and the competence that people are able to live well. So today is about really, in some ways, harnessing our inner Antigone to be able to say what's true, to be able to talk about the hard things, to celebrate the incredible contributions that nurses make every single day, and to support that sense of purpose and well-being through this medium that Brian has so brilliantly created. So I'm going to invite all of you to pause and reflect on what brought you here today and how you might engage in this next time together with curiosity, with a sense of openness, and perhaps to let go of what you thought was going to happen, because it's probably going to be different. So thank you, Brian, for being on this journey with us, and thank all of you and all of my nursing colleagues for what you do every single day.
Thank you so much, Cinda. It's an absolute honor to be working with you on this project. I know this isn't the end, but probably just the beginning, but it's nice to bring it to a resolution after this full year of work we've been doing since we launched the project in March of last year. It's been an absolute journey. Every time we do this, it feels like we're meeting nursing wherever nursing is. With our other projects, I feel like we can anticipate what the conversation might be about and try to frame it and think about it. But every night we do this, the sands keep shifting because nursing has been under such duress, and there's been so much happening nationally, internationally for nurses, not just during COVID. Of course, that's been a catalyst for many things, but before COVID, things that have now been brought into the light that nurses are now finding their voices and speaking the truth about in ways that have raised our consciousness in the non-nursing world. And one of the reasons we want to do this is to bring concerned citizens together with nurses and bring them into dialogue as one community, not with facile, easy expressions of gratitude like banging pots and pans and clapping, but actually getting down into the trenches and collectively bearing the moral and spiritual and ethical burden together as a community of what nurses have faced. And so that's the idea behind tonight. It's going to happen in 3 parts. If you've been to any of our events, you know this. The first part is going to be a reading of Sophocles Antigone by this amazing group of actors behind me who have all said yes and volunteered to be part of it. We have an incredible cast for you tonight. To my far left, Atu Blankson Wood, our public advocate, Jamani Williams, Anthony Edwards, Katie Irby, Adepero Oduye, David Strathern, and then our amazing nurse chorus members. These are our all-star nurse. We have some other nurse chorus members in the audience too. You're all-stars as well, but we're so excited to have Charlene Lastback, Craig Bauman, whom we first met at the Greene Space in 2017, and Sandy Ko. Thank you all so much. It's our incredible cast and perform for you tonight. As soon as the actors are done with the reading, which will be about 40 minutes, anyone that thinks the Greek tragedy has to take 2 hours or 4 hours, they're selling you a bag of goods. We can do it in 40 minutes and get to the discussion, which is the real performance, when people stand up and share their truths and their interpretations of what they heard on the stage. So the second part of the event, and it's all one thing, by the way, I say it's 3 parts, but it's one thing, is that our nurse chorus and Cindy are going to come up and they're going to offer their gut responses to what they heard and experienced in the reading tonight, what spoke to them tonight, because theater is about what's happening in the present moment now, just like nursing. It's about what's happening now. And so they're going to share their fresh insights and thoughts, modeling for us as a community doing the same. So as soon as they're done, I'm going to come out into the audience with mics, and Dominic's going to have one, I'm going to have one, and we're going to go to people on Zoom who are joining us all over the planet, and we're going to ask you questions about Sophocles Antigone, questions we've asked other audiences all across the country and the world. And we'll share with you things we've heard in other communities. I know we'll take to other communities things we've heard here at the Greene Space, and we'll forge a conversation that will be just as powerful, if not more, just as beautiful, if not more, than the performance that's about to take place on the stage. So that's the structure of the event. Without further ado, I just want to tell you what you need to know about this play. It'll take me 2 seconds, then I'm going to get out of the way and let our actors have at it. Sophocles Antigone is a story that takes place half an hour after a civil war has just come to an end. And in the streets of Thebes, the archaic city of Thebes, brothers have killed brothers in a violent conflict in which 2 factions vied for power. And this family that Antigone is part of, the line of Oedipus, has seen itself over several generations of intergenerational trauma now brought to its knees. Antigone has seen her 2 brothers, Polynices and Eteocles, kill each other in the street of Thebes. And now she and Ismene, her sister, are the last of this family that starts with Oedipus and ends with them. Oedipus abandoned on the side of a mountain by his parents and left to die, and the intergenerational trauma that passed from that act all the way down the line. And here's where we are. And so in this first scene, Antigone and Ismene are out in front of the palace, and Antigone brings her sister out to share news with her about what she's heard the new king Creon has just decreed about what's to be done with their brother Polynices' body. Without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to our amazing actors and our 40-minute rendition of Sophocles Antigone.
Since the death of our father Oedipus, it seems the gods have set aside only shame and suffering for his survivors. Sister, have you heard?
I'm not sure I can take any more bad news.
I wanted you to hear it from me first. That's why I brought you outside.
You seem really upset. What is it, Antigone?
Creon has declared only one of our brothers worthy of burial. Eteocles will be laid beneath the earth with proper honors, but as for Polynices, Creon has proclaimed that no one may touch his body. It has been left for the birds.
It pains me deeply, sister, to hear you say that, but what could we possibly do to loosen this knot?
The punishment for anyone who violates this law will be execution by public stoning.
Clearly, Creon is not to be underestimated.
Neither am I.
What do you mean, sister?
It's time for you to show what you're made of, Ismene. Will you honor your family name or reject it?
You lost me there.
Will you help me?
Help you what?
Move the body.
Do you mean bury it? When it has been forbidden by law?
Of course I mean bury it. He was my brother and yours. Where is your loyalty?
Creon is our king now. I'm loyal to him.
Creon may not keep me from my family.
Do you remember how our father died, Antigone? After convicting himself of murder? He gouged out his eyes with dress pins before walking blindly into the wilderness, polluted and reviled. His mother and wife, who was one and the same, hung herself with a twisted noose. And just yesterday, our 2 brothers brutally murdered one another. If we violate Creon's law, we will only be added to the list. We are the last in the line of Oedipus, and we no longer rule this land. Not to mention that we are women, too weak to defend ourselves against men. we must do as we are told. We must perform acts far worse than this. So seeing as I have no choice, I will ask our family's forgiveness and obey those who command authority.
I wouldn't bother asking. You will not receive it. I'll bury him alone if I have to. If love is my crime, I shall plead guilty and pay the penalty with my life. You may stay behind and dishonor our family if you like.
Dishonor them. I do not want to dishonor them. I just don't see the good in disobeying the law.
Then let that be your excuse. I'm going to bury my brother.
Oh, sister, I am afraid for you.
Worry about yourself.
Okay, promise me one thing. Let this be our secret. I will not tell a soul.
Oh, say it loud! I shall hate you all the more if you don't.
Then you are resolved to do this thing?
I am.
And what if you don't have the strength?
Then I shall die trying.
Antigone, you fool! You are your father's daughter!
Oh, light of the sun, more beautiful and radiant than any rays that have ever graced this seven-gated city.
Oh, golden day breaking upon the ever-flowing waters of Dirce, and shimmering across the blazing shields of enemy soldiers lined up for battle at dawn.
Polynices was the one who led them against us with cries of hatred for our people, screaming like a fierce eagle with its white wings spread wide as it circled over our homes, searching for prey.
That night, upon his order, 1,000 flaming spears came bursting through the sky, aimed high at the guards perched upon the seven gates.
But before those weapons of death came raining down upon their heads, filling our streets with rivers of blood, that arrogant man who led the charge was cast back and thrown to the earth as the city rose up behind him like a ferocious dragon roaring for war.
The gods loathe the sounds of men boasting as they stick out their chest, coated in gold, and swagger towards the city.
And so when Zeus saw the first soldier scale our walls and shout, "Victory!" he scorched the torchbearer with white lightning and sent him flying backwards, writhing and screaming as he plummeted straight to earth.
It was then that the battle first turned in our favor, and the war god destroyed our enemies, burning them all back to ashes.
The seven captains died swiftly as they tried to breach the seven gates, leaving their weapons as spoils for the men who broke them on the battle line.
But only the brothers continued to fight, stabbing and hacking with fierce spears in close combat, unable to slake an insatiable lust for blood.
They died in each other's arms.
O light of the sun, victory at dawn. Now that we have vanquished our enemies and saved the city from utter destruction, may we rejoice with endless songs of revelry and all-night dances.
And may we never forget what happened here.
And never go to war again.
Gentlemen, I have gathered you here on this momentous day to ask for your support. After sending us stormy seas, the gods at long last have granted us still waters. I know that you once respected the authority of King Laius' throne, and that when Oedipus wore the crown, you yielded to him. Since the news of Oedipus' death, you have remained loyal to him. You have remained loyal to his descendants, and so it saddens me to report that the line of Oedipus is no more. Patricide has begotten fratricide. Yesterday morning, his two sons killed each other in battle. I am now your king. It is impossible to judge a man's character without first seeing him in action. But I will tell you this, a leader is nothing without his advisors, and I will have the best. A leader is someone who always chooses his country over his friends. Our country is this ship on which we sail. She must remain upright and steady for us to coast safely into harbor. It is with this in mind that I make my first proclamation. Eteocles, who died fighting for this city, shall be buried tomorrow afternoon with full honors. Polynices, who returned from exile to burn our city down, he shall rot unburied on stony ground. A 5-course meal for vultures. That is my decree. Death will be the punishment for anyone who violates this law.
Lord!
You're out of breath. What's your hurry?
I am out of breath, sir, but not from running, from fear.
What makes you so fearful?
First, let me say I didn't do it, nor do I know who did.
Yes?
So, it wouldn't be fair to punish me for delivering this news.
You're hedging. You must be guilty of something.
Someone has buried the corpse.
What do you say? What man would dare do this?
I do not know, sir.
I see.
There was no footprints, no claw marks, no divots on the ground. There was no sign of the culprit anywhere. And when we finally found the body, it was only lightly covered with dirt and was not entombed.
Maybe it was the work of the gods.
Do not insult my intelligence. With Zeus as my witness, I now swear this oath. If you do not find and produce the perpetrator of this crime, you will wish for a quick death, but never receive it. I will have your extremities removed one by one until you reveal the criminal's name.
Can I say something, sir? Or should I just turn and go?
I have spoken. You cannot say anything that will change my mind.
Oh, the world is full of many wonders, but none more miraculous than mortals.
We sail across oceans on the cold winter wind.
We work the land with horse-drawn plows, turning the soil from season to season.
We tame fierce falcons and savage beasts, catching them in thick-woven nets with skill and grace.
We bridle colts and subjugate wild mountain bulls, roping their neck and wrestling them to the ground.
We have mastered the art of making speeches and of ruling over cities with a firm hand, a quick wit, and an unshakable resolve.
We know when to seek shelter from the enemy's attacks.
We never act rashly or without an army at our backs.
We can heal the sick, reduce pain, and even extend life.
The only thing we can't escape is death.
The righteous who uphold the laws of nature and divine justice ride high through the city.
But the unrighteous, who keep company with the corrupt, and lash out in anger without thinking whenever threatened, will be cast out of this city forever.
Okay, where's Creon?
No, this can't be right. Not the daughter of Oedipus. Poor Antigone.
Somebody call Creon. I solved a little problem. Or rather, the problem solved itself. The culprit turned herself in.
What is the meaning of all this, or why all the noise?
Sir, a man should never swear oaths, for nothing, it seems, is ever certain. I have come, although I swore I wouldn't, to bring you this girl who was caught digging a grave.
This girl? How and where did you find her?
She was burying a man. What more do you need to know?
Do you know what you are saying?
Yes, sir. I saw this girl burying the corpse which you said must not be buried. Am I making myself clear?
You saw her in the act.
When I returned to the body with your threats still ringing in my ears, I dusted it off carefully and climbed a nearby hill to keep watch. Soon thereafter, I heard a piercing cry, the shrill note of a bird when returns to find an empty nest. It was she. Upon seeing the naked corpse, she pounced upon it with fistfuls of dirt, which scratching at the surrounding soil with her fingernails. I rushed down and charged her with the crime. She denied nothing. Her response was both relieved and tortured me at the same time.
You there? Bowing your head, do you admit or deny having done these things?
I say I did these things, and I do not deny it.
You may go. Tell me, and be careful with your words, were you aware of my proclamation forbidding the body to be buried?
Yes, I knew it was a crime.
And you still dared to break the law?
I didn't know your laws were more powerful than divine laws, Creon. Did Zeus make a proclamation too? I wasn't about to break an unwritten rule of the gods on account of one man's whim. Of course, I knew I would someday die, and if that day is today, then I count myself lucky. It is better to die an early death than live a long life surrounded by evil men. So don't expect me to get upset when you sentence me to death. If I had allowed my own brother to remain unburied, then you might see me grieving. What's wrong? You seem puzzled. Perhaps you think I've rushed to action without considering the consequences. Well, maybe it's you who has rushed to action. Either way, the question remains. Do you have the guts to follow through?
I see you have inherited your father's charm. Citizens, I say that she is a man and I am not, if she gets away with breaking the law and boasting about her crime. I don't care if she's my niece. She and her sister will both be put to death, for I hold her sister equally responsible for planning this burial. Call her. She's right inside. I just saw her running around the palace in hysterics.
You won't torture me first and make an example of me?
No, I think not.
Then what's taking you so long? I'm sick of listening to your insipid voice. If you're such a man, why don't you do it right now? Is it because you know that burying my brother was an honorable act? These men would all agree with me if they weren't afraid to speak.
You are the only person here who thinks that.
They only keep their mouths shut for you.
Why don't you join them?
Because there's nothing shameful in loyalty to a brother.
And what about your loyalty to your other brother?
He would have done the same.
He would have honored his enemy.
It was his brother who died, not a slave.
One died seeking to destroy this city, while the other died defending it.
The dead all have rights.
What about justice?
Who knows what is just in the world below?
An enemy is never a friend, even in death.
I was raised not to hate, but to love.
Then in love in the world below. No woman will ever tell me what to do as long as I live.
Here she is, Creon. Here is Ismene. We found her crying tears for her sister inside the palace.
You little snake! All this time, you were secretly plotting behind my back. Do you deny it?
As long as she agrees, I accept the blame.
No, I will not let you. Tell him. You tried to stop me. Do not deny it.
But Antigone, I want to go with you.
You had your chance.
Sister, do not refuse me the right to die with you and honor the dead.
You may not share in things in which you played no part. My death is enough.
And what will I do without you?
Ask Creon. He is your king, remember?
Why are you being so cruel to me?
Save yourself. I won't hold it against you.
I want to die too.
Be brave, sister. It is your turn to live, and mine to die.
It seems you both have gone insane.
People crack under pressure, Lord.
Indeed. Is that why you chose to aid and abet a criminal?
How could I live my life alone? She's all I've got.
You speak of her as if she's present. She no longer exists.
So you will murder the bride of your own son?
She's not good enough for my son.
Dearest Haman, how your father wrongs you.
Enough! Take them inside, treat them like the criminals they are, tie them up, wait for my orders.
Blessed are those whose lives are never touched by misfortune.
But for those who are singled out to suffer by the gods, there is no end to their destruction.
It overwhelms their homes like a giant wave rising up from the deep and shaking them to their foundations.
It marches like an army against their families, attacking generation after generation.
This house has been cursed from the beginning of time by an inescapable fate.
And now, the last in the royal line will soon be cut by the merciless blade of destiny.
There seems to be a law written somewhere in the heavens and for all time that mortals may not gain power or wealth without great consequences.
The price of good fortune is calamity. Hope brings profit to many men, but it's a fantasy that keeps them from seeing the impending disaster on the horizon until it's too late, and their feet have been scorched by the flames leaping up beneath them.
Here is wisdom. Evil only seems good to the arrogant man who is bent on destruction.
But the humble man who keeps his head down remains alive by riding out the storm.
Here comes Haman, the last of your sons. Is he here to plead the case of his bride, Antigone?
My son, have you come to fight your father or to prove your loyalty to him?
Father, I am your son. No marriage will take the place of you in my heart.
Well said. Thank you, Haman. You have made me very proud. Let me give you a piece of sound advice. It's something my father once told me, and now I'd like to pass it on to you. Never let your feelings for a woman influence an important decision. Women are the objects of our desire. We may embrace them, but we shouldn't let them cloud our judgment. Your fiancée has proven to be an enemy of the state. She was recently caught in an act of open disobedience, and for this, she must die. I cannot be called a liar on my first day of office. This is the kind of scandal that destroys cities. Trust me, I know. I've seen it before. But with your help, we will overcome this little setback, proving to the Theban people that we are a family with strong moral values.
Father, the greatest gift that men can receive from the gods is good sense. I cannot fault a thing you just said. It all makes sense. Only you are not in a position like me to hear the kinds of things people are saying in the city. Many of your citizens mourn for this girl, saying that she does not deserve to die for such a noble deed. They view what she did not as a crime, but as an act of heroism. For when her brother lay unburied, she did not leave him to be torn apart by scavenging dogs, but risked her life to put him in the ground. But this is the word on the streets I wanted you to know. For me, I only wish to see you become the greatest king Thebes has ever known. There is no greater joy for a son than to see his father succeed, and vice versa. So, I hope you will weigh what I have told you against the things you have just said and change your mind. You are a wise man, but even the wisest of men is not ashamed to learn new things.
You have both spoken well.
Yes, but shall a man of my age be taught by a man of yours?
If I am young, please consider my actions, not my age.
Your action has been to defend a criminal.
Not according to the people of Thebes.
Oh, should the people of Thebes tell me what to do?
See, you sounded like an adolescent just then.
I am the ruler of the city.
There is no city which belongs to one man.
Does the city not belong to its ruler?
You would be better off to rule the desert.
So, you've come to fight on the woman's side.
I came here to help you.
By putting me on trial?
By stopping you from making a rash decision.
Traitor! All your words are for her.
And you, and me, and all the gods above and below.
You will never marry her while she lives.
Then she will destroy another with her death.
Are you threatening me?
There is no point in threatening an incompetent king.
You will regret this by Mount Olympus. I swear that you will live to regret insulting your father. Bring that little slut here so he can see her suffer.
You have completely lost your mind if you think I'll stay here and watch her die. You will never see my face again.
Your son has left in a fit of rage.
Yeah, let him go.
He is of a sensitive age.
Let him go. He will never save those two girls from death.
Do you really intend to kill them both?
No, I don't. You see, I listen. I learn. I'm just a ruler. I do not wish to kill the innocent one.
And how do you plan to execute the other?
I shall take her to the edge of town and bury her alive in a shallow cave.
Oh, love, invincible, oldest and most powerful force in the universe.
Mighty Eros, I call out to you, who travels over oceans, through desert and wild, overgrown forests, descending into the homes of unsuspecting mortals, keeping them awake at night with lust and hunger.
Neither God nor man can resist your overwhelming power, and those who dare try are driven mad with longing desire.
You twist the minds of men and send them reeling towards violence.
You corrupt the just, pitting brother against brother, as you did with the two who fought so fiercely before the city gates last night, spilling each other's blood into the streets.
O holy combustible desire, which radiates from the eyes of beautiful brides and reigns victorious over the world, ruling from a golden throne alongside the oldest of laws, as overpowering and irresistible as Aphrodite, frolicking naked in the waves.
I kneel here at your feet, my head bowed, begging you not to allow Antigone to be led to her death in the bridal chamber, where she has been sentenced to rest for all time.
Citizens of my fatherland, you are seeing me now for the last time. There will be no wedding, no bridal feast. Death will be my bridegroom.
We will honor you like a goddess after you are gone, Antigone.
Do not mock me. Why don't you wait until I am dead to insult me? Oh, you wealthy citizens. Shame on all of you. Not one of you will do anything to save me, and you dare to say you will worship me.
You have stumbled against the law, Antigone.
There is nothing we can do.
Perhaps you are meant to pay your father's debt.
Why do you remind me of such painful things? My poor father and my mother's bed polluted by incest. These are the kind of parents who produce such a wretched daughter as me. And so I go to join them in their misery, unmarried, alone.
You knew Creon's temper. You did it to yourself.
After stripping me of both family and friends, you lead me to this hole in the earth where you will wall me up and never allow me to see the light again.
Take her away! She's said enough. Bury her alive, as I have instructed, and let her decide whether she wishes to die quickly or waste away slowly in the darkness. I wash my hands of her life and death.
Tomb, bridal chamber, and prison, all in one. That's where I go now, to join my family in the world below. I hope they will welcome me. For when my mother and father died, I washed and dressed their bodies and poured libations at their graves. And now, after doing the same for my brother, Polynices, death will be my reward? I know there are still some people who believe I did the right thing. I ask you, what divine laws did I transgress? If the gods think that this is right, then I defer to their judgment. But if these people are doing wrong in the eyes of the gods, then may they experience nothing less than what they unjustly do to me. City of Thebes, land of my ancestors, I am being led away to my death without delay. Citizens, rulers of this country, witness my unjust suffering at the hands of these men for showing reverence for what is right and what is sacred.
People of Thebes, we have come on a shared path to seeing with the eyes of one, for this is the way the blind must walk, with the help of a guide.
What is your news, Tiresias?
I will tell you, if you promise to obey an old prophet.
I have never neglected your advice in the past.
Yes, that is why you have always steered the city on a straight course.
I can testify from experience to the help that you give.
This time is no different. You are standing on the razor's edge.
What do you mean, old man?
Well, listen and learn. As I sat down in the ancient seat of augury, I heard a shrieking birds in an evil frenzy. I listened more closely and realized they were tearing each other to pieces with sharp talons. At once I made burnt offerings to all of the gods, but wet slime oozed from the thigh bones of these animals, and their entrails exploded in all directions. Make no mistake, Creon. It is you who bears responsibility for this evil omen, for our altars have all been defiled by birds with carrion from the son of Oedipus, who still lies rotting above the earth. And so the gods no longer accept sacrifices from us, for these animals have all consumed of a dead man's blood. Consider this, Creon, before you respond. Everyone stumbles and makes mistakes, especially kings. But when someone strays from the path and accidentally does something wrong, it is important that he fix what he has broken. Stubbornness is just another sign of stupidity. Where is the power in re-killing the dead? You must bury the son of Oedipus and atone for your errors.
We have known each other for a long time, Tiresias, but I never thought it would come to this. Go ahead. Make money by attacking me if you want to. But you know this, you will never put that body in the ground. Even if Zeus's eagles should lift it up and carry it to a grave, I would not allow it to be buried. For I know that no man has the power to pollute the gods.
Does any man know? Does any man consider?
Consider what? What pithy aphorism do you have for us now?
Are you calling me a false prophet?
All prophets love money.
Then all kings love dishonest gain.
Do you know the man you are slandering is your ruler?
I know that it is because of me you saved this city and now rule it.
You may be a skillful seer, but you are fond of doing wrong with your gift.
You will drive me to reveal terrible secrets.
Really? How much is it going to cost?
Corpse for corpse, son for son. In a matter of hours, you will have sacrificed your offspring on the altar of your arrogance. See if in a few hours you still think I have said this for money. Boy, take me home.
He is gone, but his dreadful prophecy still lingers. In all my years, I have never heard him utter a word that wasn't true.
I know this too, and it troubles me deeply. It's not easy for a king to admit when he's wrong, but I cannot live with the guilt of what he has predicted.
You are wise to say this, Creon.
What should I do?
Release the girl from the tomb and bury the body.
Is this really your advice? You think I should go back on my word?
Yes, Lord, as quickly as possible before it's too late.
I will obey.
Go then and do these things yourself. Do not entrust them to others.
I shall go and release her myself. Servants, follow me. With picks and shovels, we must hurry and hope that in our swiftness we appease the god's anger.
O god of many names, who came from Semele, the thunderstruck daughter of Cadmus, and Zeus, you who rules over Greece, initiating everyone in your rights.
O Bacchic, one who dwells within the sacred walls of the city, along the rolling waters of Ismene, and the riverbank where Cadmus sowed the dragon's teeth from which our ancestors sprung.
Dionysus, the people of Thebes call out to you. Can you see us in the streets throwing back our throats and raising our voices honoring you in song?
Appear over the peaks of Parnassus and cure us of this sickness now infecting our land.
Deliver us from this unending cycle of violence.
Purify the city.
Wash away the unholy pollution.
Citizens of Thebes, we can all remember a time when Creon was once enviable. He saved this land from its enemies. He ascended to be our king, and he was the father of many children. Now he has lost everything.
What is this message that you have come to deliver?
Some are dead, others live. The survivors' hands are stained with blood.
Who is the killer and the corpse?
Haman is dead. He was murdered by a familiar hand.
His father's hand or his own?
He killed himself, but was angry with his father.
The prophet's words have come true. I see Eurydice, Creon's wife, coming from the house.
Gentlemen, I was on my way to the temple of Athena with gifts and supplications when I overheard your conversation. I understood some of what you just said, but not all. Please tell me everything you know and hold nothing back, because I'm a woman.
Dear mistress, I accompanied your husband in a search for Polynices' body. When we found it, we prayed to Pluto, god of the dead. Then we tended to the body, washing it, dressing it, and burning it with fresh branches. Finally, we built a burial mound and we laid Polynices to rest. Next, we sprinted for the outskirts of town. From a distance, one of us heard the shrill sounds of wailing. And when we got closer, Creon heard it too, and all of a sudden cried, "Now I am a prophet! For I know that voice all too well. It is my son!" And so we pulled away the rocks, and in the depths of the cave, we saw Antigone hanging from a noose. And your son clinging to her waist, sobbing. Creon, upon seeing his boy inside the cave, called out to him, "Son, what are you doing? Come out, I beg you!" But the boy glared at his father with murderous eyes, spat upon the ground, and withdrew his sword. Creon barely escaped with his life. Haman looked sadly upon his bride, laying her body gently upon the cavern floor. Then he fell upon his sword. plunging its sharp blade deep into his side. He held onto his lover with feeble hands and coughing up blood which stained her cheeks. And there they lie, a corpse upon corpse, a marriage of sorts, deep in the house of Hades.
What do you suppose this means? She ran inside without saying a word.
I am surprised. I hope it is because she does not think it proper to mourn in public.
I don't know. Silence can be just as ominous as wailing.
You're right. There's something strange about her reaction. I'll go inside and check on her.
Here comes the king himself carrying his son's body.
My son! My son! It's all my fault. My fault! I am to blame for your death.
It seems you have learned too late.
I have learned nothing but misery. Oh, it is terrible to be a man.
Sir, your troubles have only just begun. Something worse awaits you in your palace.
What could be worse than to murder his son?
Your wife is dead.
You've killed me twice, messenger, with your words. Death upon death surrounds me.
See for yourself, sir.
Oh, God, what is next? I have just held my son's dead body, and now his poor mother.
She impaled herself upon a sharp sword, sticking it deep inside her belly, charging you with the murder of her son.
Why hasn't someone cut me open? Stabbed me in the heart and eased my pain. It was I. I killed her. I am a monster. Servants, lead me out of this city. I must never look upon another man again.
Those are wise words, Creon.
Lead me out of sight, please. I am a foolish man. There is blood on my hands. I killed my wife and child. I am crushed. I have been crushed by fate.
Wisdom is the greatest gift to mortals.
The grand words of proud men are punished with great blows.
That is wisdom.
That's the end of our dramatic presentation for the evening. Thank you so much for your attention. So, I want to thank our actors for their performances tonight. They always say yes. They always leave their vocal cords on the table. Minimal rehearsal, maximum impact. I'm just so grateful to all of them for being with us tonight. As our actors are finding their place in the audience, we're going to have our nurse chorus members shift over, and then Cinda's going to come join us on the stage as well. And our screen is going to come down because we're going to have audience members from all over the planet joining us as well. So the screen will drop now. And as that happens, I just want to plant the first seed of the first question we're going to ask you as an audience here at the Greene Space after the nurse chorus, the nurses on stage, finished with their opening gut responses to what they heard and saw in the play that connected with them tonight, what resonated with them. And so here's the question we've asked 10 other audiences over the last year and change as we've presented this project over and over and over again. As Cinda says, is fond of saying, if you've seen one Nurse Antigone, you've seen one. Because it's always different, because of course the performance is really what's about to happen now, which is always and ever-changing based on what's happening in the lives of the people who convene to bear witness to the truth of what resonated with them and the audience that particular night. So this is where you come in, our third chorus. Those of you who are watching in the audience now on Zoom, in spite of the distance of culture and time, in spite of the fact this play was written 2,500 years ago and performed in ancient Greece and Athens, in a century in which they saw nearly 80 years of war, in a century in which medicine was formalized as a practice in the Western world, in a century at the end of which a plague or a pestilence killed at least 1/3 of the Athenian population. In spite of everything that separates us from the Greeks who wrote and received this play, what spoke to you tonight? What resonated with you tonight? What touched you? What was true? We'd love for you to think about that here in this room and out in Zoom. And we're going to come back to you in a few seconds. Before we do, we're going to turn things over to our second chorus of nurses. And they all know that I always look to see who's making the best eye contact, to see who gets to go first, and they're all looking down right now. But Craig, you just made eye contact. I'd just like to say briefly that we met Craig here at the Greene Space when we launched our residency in 2017, and there was a young man in the back of the room who had a hoodie on, who had just left the Air Force, and he was a medic in the Air Force, and he was speaking truths that were so profound that we immediately rushed up and introduced ourselves to him and invited him to join the circus. And he's since done many things. He's acted, he's been a panelist, he's been a facilitator, and when COVID hit, he ran toward the fire and went to nursing school and has sort of matriculated into nursing as this project has evolved. Was a student nurse when it began, and now is at the end of a very intense indoctrination period. And anyway, so there's no pressure on Craig to say brilliant things, but I just wanted to say it's so great to return to the Greene Space where we first met you and to have you played so many roles in Theater of War Productions projects. It's just an honor to be back with you. So over to you, Craig.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. The honor is mine in so many ways. I'm tearing up a little bit just because you putting all that into perspective is a little, it's a lot emotionally to take in. So I appreciate all the opportunities you've shown my way. My name is Craig Bauman. I'm a veteran. I'm a nurse. Coming up on finishing up my first year. The thing that stuck out most to me in the play this time around would be, I never thought I'd find myself empathizing with Creon a little bit. And it comes back to this thought that I don't know if I can say that Creon is plainly evil. I think he's trying to do the best he can given the toxic masculine and patriarchal values that he holds to be his framework of viewing the world. And it's if he's operating, truthfully to that framework, which tells him that he's right, then I wouldn't say it's evil. I would say there's a famous philosopher or speaker. She speaks about the banality of evil. Some of you may know who I'm speaking about. I forget her name. Hannah Arendt. And the banality of evil, I think about who is in this scenario who has their hands folded on their lap and is not doing anything. The banality of evil is the idea that evil is committed when good people, well-intentioned people, sit back and do nothing and allow evil to occur. And I see that as the chorus when Antigone, we say to Antigone, we will worship you when you're dead. Why not do something for her while she's alive? Just another thought I had was, while also not seeing Creon as evil for the first time and empathizing a little bit, I also saw the misogyny, maybe because we're in person finally, the misogyny was oozing out of him. And it just comes back to this idea that I hope it hits home, that a lot of what nurses face can be traced back to the history and the present-day circumstances of misogyny in our culture, that women are expected always to be in a subservient role. And so long as nursing has been historically predominantly a field occupied by women, it carries also with it that historical burden placed upon it by patriarchal matrices. In our hospital, the way in which we're expected to sacrifice always for the benefit of someone else, never turning back in on ourselves. And doesn't that remind you of the housewife, of the teacher, of these historically women fields, if I can say that, where they're expected to give and give and give, take nothing, and when you ask for anything, be seen as greedy and not being too selfish. And those are my thoughts for now. They're not fully developed, and I'm curious to see what everyone else.
Thank you, Greg. But when he said that, when Craig said at the end, is really that's the name of the game. That we really want you not to feel like you have to have a finished thought when you speak. There are not enough spaces in our culture where you can just be present with what's inside you at the moment. And so, Craig, you really modeled that in a beautiful way, as you always do. So thank you very much. Sandy's making eye contact with me. So Sandy.
Yes, I'll go next. Hello, everyone. My name is Sandy Kao. I've been a nurse for the past 15 years, a nurse practitioner for almost 10 of them. I am a professor, a researcher, a clinician, and so one of the lines for me is when the chorus says, "Deliver us from this unending cycle of violence." And I thought about what that word meant, violence. And like Craig, I think about the history of nursing. I think about my own experiences as a nurse. I think about some of the lateral violence and bullying that takes place within the profession. Even during the pandemic, where we lost so many individuals, and the loss was violent. And I don't think people would really correlate that word, but when someone is ripped away from you and you're unable to say goodbye, and you don't even understand how it could happen, it's so violent. And that violence even stems from, I think about just the structural racism that nurses have experienced, that patients have experienced in this country. And just looking at that disparity amongst patients of color, amongst nurses of color, and how those disparate outcomes show true when we looked at the mortality rates amongst COVID-19 patients. That cycle of violence is generational, as we saw with Antigone. And so how do you break those cycles? How do we as nurses take ownership in the wrong that we've done, even, and the work that we've done to kind of perpetuate those cycles of violence? And also, Antigone speaks about this, well, will anybody speak for her? Will no one speak for me? And oftentimes you have that nurse, that sacrificial nurse, who ends up kind of being hung out to dry or put out to the cross. And it's only afterwards they're martyrs and they're amazing women and they've done, or men, and they've done this incredible thing. But as a profession, I think we can do so much more and do so much better to work together. And ending that cycle of violence is going to take time. It's going to take real conversations. It's going to take audiences like this to help kind of spread some of the word in really innovative ways, because these conversations, as I said, are difficult, but this is how we start.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm struck listening to you, thinking about a theme that keeps coming up over and over again, which is, as we've been doing this iteratively, generatively, that the wound at the center of Antigone is deferred grief, the inability to grieve one's losses. And I think about all the nurses we've met and engaged with in these discussions, like if you're under-resourced and overworked and the entire system is sort of structured around making profit over your always being, trying to catch up, when is there ever going to be time to grieve the losses of the last 3 years if we don't create spaces like this where these losses can be acknowledged? The other thing I was thinking about when I was listening to you speak is, I've been sort of chewing on this for a while. There's a theorist named René Girard who wrote this book called Violence and the Sacred, who argues that Greek tragedy is a kind of a form where human sacrifice was practiced in the sort of archaic civilizations. And then the Greeks had this innovation in the 5th century. They ritually performed enactments of sacrifice where no one had to die. And so it's sort of a way of sublimating violence, of taking violence that would have happened and channeling it into a form. So think about Greek tragedy is a sacrificial ritual in which no one has to die. And yet nursing is a ritual of sacrifice where people are dying all the time. And where is the real tragedy in that? And I feel like that's something that is coming up for me as I'm listening to your formulation, especially when talking about health disparities with Black and Brown communities. Thank you so much, Sandy. Cinda's making the best eye contact right now, and I know that Charlene likes to be the cleanup batter, so we'll go over to you, Cinda.
So tonight, the theme that really sort of touched me was Antigone is part of a family. What does it mean to be loyal to a family? And the parallel to what does it mean to be loyal to our profession? What does it mean to belong when sometimes it means we have to stand on our own in the midst of our family, of our profession, and to speak up for things that are really hard to say. And that sort of, parallel of nurses finding their voice and being shut down and being unheard, and the silence that begins to resonate when we collectively don't speak our truth. And yet, here's Antigone, who is sacrificing everything to speak that truth in her family, where, she says, Creon cannot keep me from my family. So, I feel like nurses have been in that place, especially during COVID, of do I still belong? And what does it mean to belong now?
Thank you so much, Cinda. Thank you for all of that. I'm really grateful for you going third, and I know you've taught us more, or taught me more about nursing than I could ever imagine, just in your thinking about it. But one of the things we've seen as we've been iterating and performing the project is the family that is nursing, that community being stretched to its limits, and this question of what does it mean to belong to that family, and do I want to belong to that family, being something that's raised over and over again by people who've been part of our conversation, and people feeling guilty for leaving the family when they probably had to do it in order to save themselves. And all of us who've been part of families know what that is. So I appreciate that metaphor, using this intergenerational metaphor we've been talking about of the family as the framework for thinking about what this play might say to nurses today. Charlene, last but not least.
Hi, my name is Charlene. I'm a seasoned nurse, like to call ourselves now, of over 30 years. Let's not do the math. I have been part of Nurse Antigone since the beginning, which is kind of awesome. This reading, now usually I have stuff really prepared, but this one was like gut-wrenching. I found myself tearing up, and I do not tear up. So there are a couple of lines that did speak to me. Craig and Sandy pretty much covered everything I was thinking, but I'll try to add a little bit more to it. Witness my unjust suffering at the hands of these men. That just kicked me in the gut for whatever reason. I feel like sometimes nurses go through so much. We touched on the lateral as well as horizontal violence. It's underreported, and maybe because it's predominantly female profession, maybe the society thinks that it's okay to hurt this profession without any consequences. There are other disciplines, other professions that there are consequences. You dare not hurt them. Yet in nursing, not only do they hurt us physically and emotionally, they also sexualize us. It's like, seriously? We're here to care for you. So there's this, I feel they trust us, but do they respect us? We care for you. They trust our hearts and our souls, but do they respect our minds and our intelligence? I don't feel that sometimes. Going back to Sister, Have You Heard? With each rendition of this play, Sister, have you heard? Brother, have you heard? I've been able to use these words and actually start conversations with my colleagues. These colleagues that a year ago, we would never have spoken about this. We wouldn't have talked about disparities or inequities. I wouldn't have been able to explain my experiences. Previously, every time I spoke about the experiences, because guess what? I'm a nurse of color, so there are other things that I am exposed to that other nurses aren't aware of. Because of Nurse Antigone, I've been able to go to my colleagues and say, Sister, have you heard? And discuss Nurse Antigone, including my experiences, and for the first time, not be invalidated. And that has been huge. We've had these conversations where I have spoken to my colleagues of all ethnicities and heard their viewpoints. I've heard of viewpoints of my colleagues who they were trying to be allies, and they've been hurt in the process. That had never occurred to me, that they being hurt, like somebody asking about COVID and why people aren't getting vaccinated. They just wanted to know. and they were, I guess, stigmatized or demonized for it. And hearing their pain was eye-opening. So, Nurse Antigone, this is the finale, but I don't think it's not the end. This is just a springboard for so much more. It's these wonderful, thoughtful conversations that we can now have with each other in a public forum. Just before I finish, for the first time, my mom tuned in. She may or may not be here, I don't know. And she said, we were talking about racism in nursing, because she worked in Switzerland and it was really bad back then. She said, things aren't going to change. And I said to her, Mom, when was the last time we were able to speak about this in public? Ever. We have never, we've never spoken about this in public. So, Mom, there's a change. It's actually okay to talk about it, and people actually listen. So to wrap this up, the knowledge, knowing that these conversations are happening, the knowledge that people are listening, just knowing that that is happening, that is wisdom.
Thank you all so much. It's no small thing to get up in front of your community or an open public space like this and make such personal connections. I want to thank you for your candor, for getting us started, for modeling a way forward. I want to mention, because we're in this incredibly warm environment with a caring audience that came to be here together tonight for a reason, that those of you who are on Zoom, I think you need a little encouragement. So I just want to encourage you and know that you're part of this room too. We're going to bring you into this room. I'm going to restate the question for the audience here in the room, but then we'd love to go to some folks on Zoom. All you have to do after you've thought about the question is use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen, that button, and we'll bring a few of you up onto the screen and bring you behind the panelists here and on the monitors in this space, and we can have a global conversation, a national conversation that's framed by what's happening here in the Greene Space tonight. It's really exciting. This is, I'd trade everything back from the pandemic in a second, in a heartbeat, but that we had to innovate as a species, as a culture, and find new ways to connect. I think it's really exciting that something good came from this, and this conversation is something that is good that came from this, and the amazing activism that Craig and Sandy and everyone on this stage and in this audience have been part of is something that's good that's come from this. So I'm going to rephrase the question, but again, those in the audience that are out there, sometimes it's hard because it feels like we're serving two groups, and it's hard to serve both with equity, but know that we care about you, those who are out in the audience. We want to hear from you. There's nothing more thrilling than all of a sudden diving into someone's living room or into their car or into a closet, a custodial closet. There we go, right off the bat, like magic, and hearing from people around the world. But we're going to go out to our audience here first at the Greene Space, and we'll start pulling some folks in from out there. Here's a question again. Now that you've heard these actors going for broke, leaving everything behind on the table, and you've heard these amazing members of the nursing community making such personal connections across time to their own experiences as they heard this play and received it. What spoke to you tonight as audience members here in the Greene Space or on Zoom? What touched you as you were listening to the play or to what was just said by our second chorus? What resonated with you? What was true? Now, in every audience, there's always one extremely kind person, usually the most attractive person in the room. I knew it was you.
Should I hold it? I was struck of the similarity between Antigone and Emmett Till's mother.
Thank you. Thank you. And this room can hold that. We can hold that, and we can make those connections. And you made a hand go up, so that was a hand, right?
Yeah, because I'm also attractive. No. I guess what struck me, and it's, art imitating life or what have you, but it's the idea of power at the detriment, the king holding on to his power. And I think about states currently decimating communities, holding on to that power, criticizing or annihilating people for who they love, for women's voices about their bodies. All those things are sort of swirling around. And then I just, in terms of nursing, just thinking about how we've been put on a pedestal during COVID, and now finally people know that we're one of the greatest professions. We work really hard, and then I sort of started to see it dial back as the world went back to normal. And so I know, forgive me, I forgot your name that went last. You were saying to your mom that things are going to change, but I remember sort of drawing back, like we're still not at the table. People are still holding on to power and getting in the way of, safe staffing for us, or are we really getting paid what we are worth for the work that we do? So, just that idea of power, in regardless of what's at stake, there's always a group, no matter what time or place or slice in life, that's holding on to that power. And so it's just really striking to see, even with the king, to the point where he lost everything. You talk about intergenerational trauma. It was parallel for both families. So I just found it really striking.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Dominic, thank you for,
I think what resonated with me was Antigone's sister and the moral despair. And my thought is not complete yet, but what she was going through, and kind of that moral despair that she had so much love for, and probably respected what her sister was doing, but struggled with that loyalty to authority. And it just made me think about nursing and the quiet moral despair that we may be struggling with, understanding what needs to be done because of the oath and what we did and what we signed up to do, but yet what's the right thing to do. And even amongst colleagues, having those differing opinions, yet having that mutual love for nursing, and being on two sides of everything that's going on now in the conversations. That really spoke out to me.
Thank you so much. I'm going to come over here in a second, but I just want to say we're not, I think we have a hand over here because I want to spread the love over into that side, but I promise, don't let those hands go away. And then after this person over here, we're going to go to a couple of our folks on Zoom. But the beauty of that is that we know the energy will only accrue in this room. It's not going to dissipate. But I just love all the things that have been said over here, the way you're tying all these different threads together. How could we not read it tonight through the lens of all the things you've all brought into the room about how power and state power manifests at the highest level and at the micro level? And I love the connection to Ismene. I would define Greek tragedy or Sophocles tragedy as stories about people who all believe they're right, and yet someone's going to die. And again, it's a representation of death, so maybe no one has to die. But we've had a lot of actresses, especially actresses of color, play Antigone, raise their hand during discussion saying, why do we have to have this performance at all to have this conversation? Why do we need the mediation? But I like the idea of thinking about that there are Ismenes and Antigones within nursing, and there are probably, as Craig said so bravely right out of the gates, there are Creons, and that everyone feels justified. And yet, when everyone feels justified and everyone's playing a role and unwilling to step back from those roles and see it from each other's perspectives, then people are going to die and be sacrificed. And so I feel like there's something in that. I really appreciate you bringing that.
Ryan, can I just quickly?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
It was the thought is coming more fulfilled.
I knew it would.
It's that and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. If we can remove the idea that anyone in this story is evil, then what we have is a story of competing definitions of good. And I think the reason I resonated with Creon is because this past week I got face-to-face time with my CNO, my chief nursing officer. And I asked him a straightforward question about can he increase staffing, and the answer was runaround. But in his answer, because I unloaded a lot on him, I gave him statistics and everything, and I saw how it made him a little. I can read uneasiness from his body language, and in that moment I would say he wasn't an evil person administrator. But he was a person who had who saw something from a vantage point, a perspective, that to me was not appropriate for what my mission is, which is to go in and take care of my patients and ensure that they have their human dignity intact by the time they leave my care. That I'm not leaving them sitting in urine and feces because I'm understaffed. That I'm not leaving them. I'm not just sedate the psych patients because we don't have time to initiate and engage with them on a therapeutic communication level. And that's where my resonance with Creon came in, is that I spoke with my Creon this past week, and I didn't walk away thinking this Creon that I work with is evil. I walked away wondering, with more questions than answers, how can you not see what I'm seeing?
Yeah. I think that's a really lovely question, and I appreciate you framing it that way. We're going to go there, and then we're going to go to Roberta on the screen next. Yeah.
Brian?
Yes. Oh, sorry. We're going to go to Cinda, and we're going to go over here.
I just want to make one kind of offering about death.
Yeah.
We talk about death as, this death of the physical body, but I think what our colleague over here was referring to is the insidious way that our hearts and souls get dead. And that scares us.
Yeah.
That's not who we are. Yeah. So it is that death by 1,000 cuts. It's not the violent, end of life moment necessarily, but I think it is this accumulation. And, that is what we carry, that keeps, the rock in our shoe.
Thank you so much, Cinda. Yeah, you remind me of my classics professor, my great mentor, under whom I studied Greek, used to say that he was a German Jew, survived the Holocaust. He said, it's possible to die before one's dead. And I didn't quite know what he meant when I was 21, but I have a better sense of it now that I'm 46. Thank you so much. Thanks for your patience out here, and then we'll go to Roberta on the screen. Go right ahead. Yeah.
I think it's important that everybody is speaking their truth tonight. Especially, I was just thinking about Antigone. Like, she was a sacrifice, right? We don't have to be the sacrifices.
That's right.
We're not the sacrifice. Because as a nurse, as somebody who's a profession, as Craig said, we all took this oath to take care of our patients. And we will fight like hell to make sure we take care of our patients well. And in this fight, just so there's context to this, the hospital that we actually work at, we all work at the same hospital, we just took a strike authorization vote, and we're waiting on the results. And we're gonna fight like hell to make sure that we have proper staffing and that we make sure that we have enough resources, because we are dealing with King Creons, right, that are trying to take away certain things. And this is not something that we're going to allow to happen again and again and again in nursing, because this, as we learned from January, we can't take this anymore. No one could take that. It's abusive. And we have to say no. And then you might see us on the news later in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
But I'm thankful for this space, and also just know that we have to fight. And it's not because at the end of the day, patients, it's people. We are people. We have to take care of our loved ones. And every single person that we run into becomes our family. And so we're not going to give up on that.
Thank you so much. After our first performance, there was a nurse who came on the screen, and she said that watching Antigone be holed up in a cave felt like nursing for her. She just wanted to get to her brother. She just wanted to get to the body that needed her attention, even though it was deceased. But the dead all have rights, as do the living. And that was what it felt like for her during COVID, trying to get to the patient without the resources, feeling like she was being walled up. I also feel like what you said really spoke to, like, when I said we keep meeting nursing where it is. And it's so beautiful to meet nursing at a point where I know nursing has found its voice many times. I don't want to be naive about it, but the strength of the voice that's being put forth now, and the strength of the rejection of sacrifice. And it speaks not just for nurses, it speaks not just for a women-centered profession, but it speaks for a culture that's changing too. And it's wonderful to have your voice in the room and to hear what you had to say. Roberta, you've been waiting for some time, and also we have neglected our Zoom audience, and I take full responsibility, saying all these amazing things about global conversation. But Roberta, over to you. What resonated with you? What spoke to you? What was true?
Well, it's very much an honor to be with all of you tonight. This is the very first exposure I've had to Greene Space and the theater of war, and I'm like very much hooked already. What brought me here is that my daughter is a nurse, or I guess I must say now, she was a nurse. And COVID did her under with regard to her nursing career. She was a triage nurse who had to make decisions, likely death decisions, in the spur of the moment. And she's also a highly sensitive person. I don't know if any of you are aware of that. 1/3 of the people on the planet are on that end of the spectrum. And so and she had 2 daughters who were going through the school experience of having to leave their friends and learn from home. And it was too much for her. And so she had to leave, and she spent the next month and basically a year hiking, sometimes with friends and often alone. Anyway, that's what brought me here, because my heart is very much with her. But I'm also an ecologist, and I'm working on the front line of trying to cope with the climate crisis and basically the poly crisis that our Earth faces right now. And I guess I would just like to say that this play speaks to an old world view and a new world view. The old world view is that I must be strong and aggressive and not back down with regard and show my power. And the new world view is that I want to speak the truth power. And this Antigone is the hero. And I like what one of the comments says in the audience said tonight about that we don't have to sacrifice ourselves, but we all need to be right now that hero who says, this is what I believe true in my heart, and so this is what I'm going to do. And if we all did that, we could make a huge difference in the world. I'm very grateful for this gathering. I'm calling in tonight from Western Maine, and bless you all for the good work. David Stradlin was another poem, I have to say. I love his work. But
Thank you so much, Roberta. Thank you for being with us. Really powerful to hear your comments as a mother and as an ecologist. And I love that you brought the climate crisis into the room as well, because we can talk about all of that. And I love the distinctions you made between old and new world. Those are really powerful ways to think of what's playing out both in the play and in the room here right now. I want to also invite Lauren, who's next in line on screen. Lauren, thanks for your patience. You've had your hand up for a while. What resonated with you? What touched you? What was true?
Hi, my name is Lauren. I am what you would call a baby nurse. I'm also coming upon my first year, but I've been working in healthcare for years now, specifically in mental health. Gosh, so many things have resonated with me. I don't even know where to begin. I appreciated the comment about 1,000 cuts. Even though I'm currently a student in my master's program, being in healthcare already, I have experienced the start of those cuts, of speaking up and nothing being done, finding out that someone was friends with someone and nothing was going to happen. Craig's comments about not being able to touch on the therapeutic alliance with patients. Most people just want to be treated with dignity and respect, and that was something that really touched me in the play of people not being able to be treated with the amount of dignity and respect they deserve because we're understaffed, we're underfunded, we don't have enough staff ratios, not just with the nurses, but with techs, with all the staff who make up hospitals and healthcare as a whole. A lot of people are forgotten in the kind of red tape bureaucracy, the lines of business. And I kind of thought of the quote from The Dark Knight in terms of you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain, in terms of, those 1,000 cuts can weigh on you. Mm-hmm. And you some people have found themselves becoming Creon without realizing. Yeah. because they've spoken up so many times. Things have been understaffed and underfunded for so long that you kind of become cynical, crass, may not respond to your patients like you would when you first came into the profession. And it's hard because, as you touched on, you don't get a break. You have cold blues, you have so many things happening. You can't bring that into the next room with you when you have to go see another patient. I had times where I was literally attacked at previous jobs, and then I had to give my residents dinner right after because I couldn't stop to think about what happened, and I couldn't unload that onto my loved ones once I got home. So it's just kind of brewing within me because there's not enough spaces for us to talk about this without fear of repercussions or threats to our livelihood, which is a real thing that a lot of people deal with, and I think contributes to kind of that journey of becoming Creon, because there are, to be frank, real life consequences sometimes to speaking up. So I like to have the nuanced perspective on how different people approach things, because there's not always a black and white answer to how to approach these situations.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Creon, I love having Atu and Tony do that scene and where Haman tries to speak up to his father, and Creon's response is, should a man of my age be instructed or taught by a man of yours? And I think when I hear young people speak, I mean, Craig and now Lauren, the power of fresh eyes, this new generation, this younger generation saying no more to hazing, no more to the indoctrination of the hidden curriculum of violence and cruelty and bullying, no more to favoritism and inequity and corruption. And yet, I hear you also saying something I've never heard someone say before, which is, this is also a play about how Creons are made. I've never heard someone put such a fine point on it. Of course, everyone's dead at the end of this particular rendition of the play, but even those of us who are witnessing it, have to wrestle with what's the collective impact of watching everyone be subsumed in the violence of these choices and not seeing justice in the end. We're going to go back out to the audience, and we have a lot of hands. Dominic, I don't know where you are. Right here. Okay, great. Thank you.
For me, what resonated was Antigone being willing to stand up against Creon. She heard the law. She heard the fact of Creon saying, no one is to touch him, leave him. And she said, that's not right. And for her to stand up against someone so powerful and do what she knew was right is so powerful to me. It resonates with me because when I first went into nursing, you're nursing, you say, oh, I'm gonna be quiet and nimble. I'm gonna be subservient, the doctor says, and I'm gonna do. And then you start growing, You become an adult in your profession, and you see nurses becoming practitioners. They're becoming doctors. Just seeing the growth of the profession, and that nurses are rising up and they're speaking out, and they're speaking up for what is right, and they're not just taking it, but they're making change. For me, Antigone, what she did was create change. And it wasn't just, it was going against the grain, but other people saw this is right. And sometimes it takes one person to bring a whole floodgate open. So I appreciated that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Dominic, there are a few hands over here. There was a million hands over here. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Nurses don't like to talk, clearly.
So I've seen about 6 Nurse Antigones.
Oh, wow.
And
It's like we should have like a prize or something. I'll think of something. I have something for you. Okay.
Amazing. And honestly, what resonated for me tonight was being in the room with all of you. Yeah. That's what really spoke to me tonight. And there's something about the collective energy of being in this room with all of you that really moved me tonight. And what I wanted to talk about was that I work in a program called Decruit, which uses Shakespeare and personal narrative to promote healing in the veteran population. And I've wanted to adapt that for nurses throughout the entire pandemic, but I could never get an administrator's attention in doing that. And I've had conversations with Craig many times, and we've talked about how could we bring this into the hospital setting. When I have people who have had 12-hour shifts that are turned into 14 and 15-hour shifts, and all they want to do is go home to their families, take a shower, and have something to eat. So how do we bring these programs to anyone? How do we carve out the time to be able to offer something like a Decruit to the nursing population? And I still don't have any answers on that, but I just want you all to know that some of us are really thinking about this work and how we can make it happen.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming this many times. You've had your hand up over here for a while.
Hi, thank you. I work at a public hospital. I'm a nurse. One of the things that I heard from this iteration of Nurse Antigone is that we sense that character as one voice, but that one voice stood up against the establishment. And now you take that one voice and you multiply it by the number of nurses, 4.4 million nurses in this country. Each and every one of us has that power. And we have also in our nursing code of conduct and ethics is that it is our duty to go out and to advocate for our patient population. There's so many aspects of our healthcare system which is institutionalized. And the only way we can change the establishment is not one Nurse Antigone, but all Nurse Antigones get up and do what is necessary. It's whether to go out and vote, talk about safe staffing. New York City now is in contract negotiations, and we're a public hospital system. We understand the budget constraints, but the system is set up so that we don't get the funding for serving the largest number of patient populations with the greatest needs. One of the reasons why I chose to work at a public hospital system is our mission. And that mission is we treat all patients who walk through that door, regardless of their ability to pay, regardless of their country of origin, their sexual preference, gender identity, anything. We take them in, we take care of them, because it's a fundamental need of all human beings to get health care. It's beyond even human rights. It's just a fundamental need of all humans. At some point, we will need health care. And it's 4.4 nurses have a voice to be there together and not just one Nurse Antigone. That's what I got from this iteration of Nurse Antigone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Before we go there, just you handed the mic. Go ahead. I just want to recenter the conversation or perturb it for 1 second. We have a couple people on screen. We've lit up the board. We're going to end at 9, and the bar will stay open, and you can stick around, and we can have a more casual conversation. We like to try to end on time. The first time we ever did one of these events is with the military, and it was 400 Marines in a Hyatt ballroom in San Diego and a play by Sophocles, and we scheduled a 45-minute discussion, and the discussion lasted 3.5 hours and had to be cut off at midnight, and we won't do that tonight. But someday I had this vision that these are just going to be endurance events, and you can just stay as long as you like until the last person is here. We'll continue talking. I know I could talk all night, but just briefly, Cinda has been teaching me so much, and she's been writing a lot about this idea of the social contract and how during COVID, the social contract has been frayed, if not broken. And when America's most trusted profession is being met with violence from the populace, you know that there's a problem in our culture and society. And so I wanted to talk about something that's been brought up, but I just want to recenter it for a second and say there's this moment in the play where Antigone comes out and she begs the citizens to raise their voices on her behalf. And they say, "We will worship you like a goddess after you are gone." And it reminded me of all the pots and pans and also you were talking about we brought in the notion of hero and heroism, how dangerous the word hero can be to someone. We learned this from the military, from our performances for the last 15 years. If you've done something that you feel morally conflicted about, you didn't live up to your own standards of care because of the impossible situation you were put in by the institution you worked for and the city you work in, and someone walks up and calls you a hero, that can actually be an act of violence toward you. That could actually be deleterious and hurtful to you. We'll worship you like a goddess after you're gone. And she says, "Do not mock me. Wait till I'm dead to mock me." So I guess this isn't, just like in our other projects, it's not for the nurses to fix the social contract. And there are lots of people here who are not nurses and also out in the Zoom world. But I want to just center on that comment, "We'll worship you like a goddess." And how do we move past facile, easy expressions of hero worship and fetishization to something that actually is meaningful and healing for nurses?
Can I run off of that?
Please, yeah.
So
I was hoping you would.
The idea of the most trusted profession, it only occurred to me after you mentioned it, Charlene, that of course you can trust us. And maybe it's not as great a compliment as it first appears to be, because you can trust anything that you can control. And like my colleague said, we're going to stand up and say no. I think it's what is on us is for us to say no. We can't be controlled. We can't be corralled into committing these acts that cause us to be complicit in things that we consider to be immoral, things that we consider to be stripping people of their human dignity. So yes, I hope I can earn your trust, but what I would like also is your respect. There's no poll on what the most respected, that I know of what the most respected field is.
We were not.
Okay.
Did my research. We were not out there.
I think that's a good distinction to make. It's a really fascinating distinction to think there. I know Cinda's done a lot of thinking about it. So.
Well, I think Craig's point is a really important one. You know, what we're talking about is not a unidirectional offering. It is bidirectional. That means both parties have responsibilities. And so what does it mean to actually be in partnership with one another toward the same goal, which is, health, well-being, flourishing? But it feels that we've gotten very imbalanced in the expectations that nurses are always expected to be there, to show up, to serve. And the other part of the equation has been much more passive and perhaps uninformed, perhaps, we haven't had enough dialogue to really make that clear. But I think what happens is it can engage those hierarchical and structural imbalances that are already present and create expectations that go along with the hero language that begin to create such unrealistic expectations that there's no way a human could ever meet them. And then our humanity begins to feel as if it's totally denied. And we feel like I want to be known too as a person, as a human being, rather than, a role or an identity.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. I think there's a mic back there. Yeah. Go right ahead, sir. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm James. To give you some background, I've been a nurse for 6 years, so I'm still newer in the field, I suppose you could say. 5 of those years have been as an emergency room nurse. There's a lot of death in this play, and there's a lot of discussion within that, in this play, about acknowledgement and respecting of that, the act of death. Being an ER nurse, you're so on the go, you don't stop. I can't tell you the amount of times I've had crazy traumas come in that they expire and you can't stop because there's always something else that comes next. And that kind of continuous rotation, that I'm going to call it intergenerational trauma to try to link it back here, where you just have to keep going and yet there's just more and more and more and more. It's kind of the same thing where they had more and more and more and more death. Without getting a chance to stop and acknowledge it, you're not going to be able to grow as a person. You're going to end up turning into Creon and leaving, which is exactly what he does at the end of the play. We spoke about the voice, and you spoke about it yourself, where no one's speaking up for us, and that's correct. We should speak up for ourselves. We have also spoken up for other people, so where's our backup? We need backup too. And I think if we become stronger in a collective voice, if more of us show up, if we have more of an opportunity to do settings like these, you will start to have more of a presence and just increase and increase and increase. And then you'll finally start to see some of that social contract change, some of that changing and healing that our profession really needs to do at this point, because again, from the ER perspective, we're broken. We've been nonstop since it started. And it's just upsetting, to be quite honest. And I like this setting to be able to speak about it. And it was also spoken how we can't just stand up and say no, and we can't. You have nurses in Oregon calling the cops because they're understaffed. And then that fire department has to come, and then now that individual that called the cops is in trouble. They're being blamed for something that they're trying to speak out against. They're trying to be a hero or heroism. I don't remember which one she is. For. Just interesting perspectives. There's more thoughts. I can percolating.
Tell, but I really appreciate everything you brought into the room. I'm going to hold on the audience here, Dominic, for a second, because I want to get Diana on the screen. Creon has this line at the end: "Death upon death surrounds me." I was listening to that as you were speaking and thinking about, when we perform for audiences for whom kitchen sink realism looks like Greek tragedy, the kitchen sink realism of their day looks like Greek tragedy. Something really remarkable happens when you put a tragedy in front of an audience that knows and lives those experiences. All of a sudden, it's not theoretical anymore. People lean over and say, "I said that to my wife last night. This happened in our house. I saw this in my place of work." And it can be validating. People are like, why do you do this? And I have to perform tragedies for people who've experienced death? What's wrong with you? But listening to you, it reminds me of what makes us do this all the time, which is, in fact, although what happens on the stage is watching people learn too late, milliseconds too late. And in those milliseconds, they've destroyed themselves and their families and generations to come. There's something really powerful and hopeful. There's nothing hopeful on stage, but there's something really powerful and hopeful in listening to an audience that's lived those experiences bear witness to their truth. I don't know what it is. I'm still, 2,000 performances in, but you've helped me refine it a little bit in my thinking listening to you tonight. Diana, you've been waiting for some time. I'm so glad. You must have found an internet connection somewhere. I don't know if you're in your tent, but Diana is an EMS professional and a poet, a really remarkable poet. And we're really excited to have Diana back in the fold. Diana.
Oh, thank you. I'm at a campground and there's Wi-Fi here. Everybody said a lot of the things that I was thinking about, and I get so caught up listening, I kind of forget what I was gonna say. I guess the thing that I really felt tonight was very similar to Craig in that maybe it's because I'm in a particularly fragile or sensitive spot myself, but I just felt everybody's position. And I mean, I just really felt it. Like I could relate to the dilemma that each person speaking was in. And I realized that really what it comes down to, and I don't say this to diminish the role of the nurses and the relevance to the nurses, but I can only speak to how it affects me as a paramedic, which is as an emergency medical provider of a slightly different sort. And I feel like we're often in this position where we have so many different things that we have to do and people we have to listen to and sources of power that we have to respond to. And ultimately what it comes down to is picking the values that you're going to adhere to. And are you going to like listen to the gods? Or are you going to listen to the king? Or are you going to listen to the doctor? Are you going to listen to your sister? Are you going to listen to your own heart? And whatever value you choose to go with, like you've got to back it up with your life. And you've got to believe whatever you're going to do so strongly that you're willing to like live or die for it. I don't know what else to say.
That was plenty, Diana. Thank you so much. I'm going to go right here because, first of all, I wanted to make sure it was one of the mistakes I made, which I want to correct right now, which I want to thank Dean Santon for her partnership. She's with the Johns Hopkins School of Nursing, and I saw her hand go up. We wouldn't be doing this without their partnership, and I know you want
Really, really briefly, thank you for all of the work that everyone has done. One of the things that struck me was the son who tried to communicate with the father by talking about what other people are thinking. He was trying to kind of bring the power, like a sort of incipient democracy in a way, of like, you're the king, but there's all these other people and they need, you need to be listening to them. And of course that didn't work. But I wanted to say that at Johns Hopkins, we are doing, and we're hoping that all the nursing schools will start to do, adding to our curriculum and our extracurriculars material about how to change any context that you're in. So if you're in a clinic, if you're in a hospital, if you're running a business, if you're in Congress, anywhere, to how to strategically communicate, how to organize. It's kind of like community organization for nurses as you're in nursing school. And we know we get organized by our students all the time, but if we can graduate people who know how to change the world as part of the curriculum, then hopefully there will be fewer of these 1,000-cut deaths.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you again. I'm sorry to be ping-ponging back, but Storm, you've been waiting for some time. Storm, we're unfortunately, we have only about 3 minutes, and we want to get to one more person, but I wanted to make sure to get to you. So Storm, what resonated with you?
Okay, well, what resonated with me was how I've never been a paid nurse, but I've been called upon to do a lot of nursing, and it's a choice of how you approach the situation. I spent 9 years as a single dad of a multiply handicapped child with almost no support. There were things that others, like an adoptive parent or even a sex addict, would have access to, that as a biological father I didn't have access to. And it also struck me, that it's not necessarily the person who thinks they're going to find themselves in that role. I had no clue when I was thinking of how my life would turn out that I'd end up, as a single dad of a multiply nonverbal, autistic, epileptic, severely mentally impaired daughter, raising her as a single dad. And it also wasn't a role that had any real respect in the society that we live in. And in a time when we have more and more people who are being forced to caretake for elderly impaired parents or children with disabilities, it's really an egregious error in how we are conducting our lives. Because when my daughter went into care, my reward was that even though I had Section and SSI, Section 8 and SSI, I ended up being a homeless individual. And when I managed to get back on my feet and I went into a store just to get, a store credit card, they wouldn't give me a credit card because I had 9 years of no credit. And when I am applying for Medicare, one of the reasons I'm on both Medicare and Medicaid is because those 9 years count as unemployment to Medicare.
Storm, I wish I could listen to you for another hour because I feel like, well, I hope you'll come to our next performance because the Venn diagram of what you're sharing overlaps with nursing and it overlaps with so many of the other subjects we try to address with our work. But what I'm hearing you say that I think is really powerful, and I think I'm so glad that we got time to hear a little bit of your story and what you've been up against, is it's far more than 4 million voices that could band together, that there are so many caregivers who are not professional nurses, but doing the noble work of nursing like you, who are also part of this community.
I had to train staff to take care of my daughter. And literally, I would train people and give them the skills that they would then go off and use to get a better job with somebody who was easier to take care of, and I'd be left to start all over again.
I really appreciate everything you brought into the room. What does nursing look like beyond the structures of formalized medical care?
I'm also a poet and a metaphysical minister, and that's
Of
really
course,
important too.
of course you are. Clearly, I think it's. So, thank you so much, Storm. We're at the end of our time.
Greenfield, Massachusetts.
Oh, thank you. See, we're uniting at least the Eastern Seaboard tonight. We're at our time. Again, we're going to spill out into the reception area and hopefully have a drink or two. But maybe there's someone in the audience who had something burning to say. You had your hand up for a really long time. No pressure to sum everything up into one perfect, very brief statement, but you're going to have the last word of the conversation this evening.
Yeah, I won't do that. So I was really struck by how so many different arguments tried to sway Creon, appeal to reason, to emotion, to morals. Ultimately, what swayed him was existential fear. I'm just in nursing school, but I've noticed in my formative attempts at advocating against injustices that the bureaucratic hammer was brought down very swiftly upon me. And when I asked, well, how do you handle this sort of thing? It's you go up the ladder, the hierarchical ladder, or you join a committee. And I think that institutions, by and large, exist to keep themselves functioning. And so I think to advocate for change, usually it's best to go outside that system. I would shout out to ACT UP. I think that's a great resource for us to draw from. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a beautiful statement. We didn't come here to tie a bow on the conversation. We just came here to start it. We hope it'll continue in all kinds of ways we couldn't have imagined as you spill out of this Greene Space and into the reception room and then out into the streets and into your homes and places of work and worship. We hope the conversation continues in myriad ways. This is the end of the first chapter of the Nurse Antigone, but also the beginning of the next. And we look to all of you who are here tonight to be part of it as we continue this work. If we had one message to deliver to you from Sophocles, this is the benediction, by the way, 2,500 years later, it's simply this: you're not alone in this room, as evidenced by this conversation we've started, but by no means finished. You're not alone across the country and the world, thanks to Storm and Diana and so many others who joined us both on the screen and then on their screens, focusing their attention on this conversation that we started here tonight, which is something we've lost in the age of streaming and podcasts, the collective power of our attention that we can feel in the room tonight. Most critically, you are not alone across time. The struggles that were on display in the play and then affirmed in the audience and validated by your comments are as old as humanity itself. That may bring comfort. It may also bring a distasteful rejection of the status quo, which has been brought up over and over again. After an early performance of our projects, another big supporter of our work, Brigadier General Laurie Sutton, who's here with us tonight, who really got Theater of War off the ground in 2009, stood up, and I'm going to steal her thunder because it's part of my benediction. I ask a question always, why do you think Sophocles wrote this play? I often ask the audiences. It's sort of a variation on what resonated with you. And she said, I think Sophocles wrote the play to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. And I hope that we did a little of both for everyone here tonight. And out of deference for our other goddess and Athena, not to fetishize very powerful and compelling women who've made our work possible, but who've opened a million doors for us, I'm happy to give Laurie a last word as well.
Brian, I was raised by a nurse. And she's gone now. My experience tonight, being surrounded by so many nurses, it feels like her spirit is alive and thriving. And yes, we're all one family. My mom knew who she worked for. She loved her patients. She loved her students. She was scapegoated in her profession and shamed within her community. As she died from a brain tumor, she was worshipped by that community. And as I watched that, and then of course tonight, the clear, compelling parallels, I was struck with what Antigone said when she said, I feel like I'm in a tomb, a bridal chamber, and a prison. And I think about, first it made me really, really angry tonight. And I didn't think I was going to say anything. And I certainly didn't think I was going to intrude on your benediction, Brian. But yeah, there you go. And I became very sad. But then I thought, wait a second, as I listened to so many of these comments and heartfelt expressions of just insight and love, I thought maybe what we can take from Antigone's experience and from my mom's experience and from the experience of so many of us who are here tonight and around the world, maybe we can take a collective look at where we are in the bridal chamber. What are our hopes? What are our dreams going forward for our family of humanity? What are the prisons that we need to dismantle? And what are the practices and the ways of being in this world that just need to die? And all I can say is that that's work worth doing, and there's nobody else that I'd rather do it with. So back to you, Brian Doris. God bless.
Thank you so much, Laurie. We can keep going if you'd like, but I'm going to stop now and say it's been an absolute honor to have so many nurses in the room with us tonight and to be in conversation with you. And I'm also grateful not just to the Theater of War Productions family and friends who came out, but also to the bystanders, the concerned citizens who are here amongst us, the QXR and WNYC listeners. I want to be part of this room and part of this discussion. Thank you for coming out. The next Theater of War Productions event will be online only, a virtual event on June 12th, and that'll be Theater of War Ajax in honor of Global Loneliness Awareness Week with veterans in the chorus, and a conversation about addressing isolation and loneliness by way of Sophocles Ajax. And you've all joined our mailing list if you didn't know already. And those of you on Zoom are already on it. But we'll be sending out an announcement early next week. And we hope you all come because the nurse chorus is a chorus that belongs in the veteran space, as Craig openly embodies as someone who crosses both of those spaces. And this conversation needs to be had on a much larger scale. So we invite you to that, and then later this summer we'll be announcing a performance here in New York City outdoors that we'll invite you to as well. We hope you'll all come back. We take your feedback very seriously, so as you're leaving, or if you're on Zoom and you close out of the event, a survey is going to pop up. We'd love your thoughts on everything tonight. There's a few questions. Your written responses mean a lot to us. As you're leaving, before you get a beer or before you go out into the streets, there's a QR codes on the table on the way out. If you could just scan them and take the survey, we'd be grateful. Even if like 15% of you, 20%, that would be a great uptick rate, and we'd learn something from you as a room. So please give us your thoughts and feedback. And with that, I just want to thank our amazing nurse chorus one last time with a huge round of applause. And I'd like to thank our actors, I know most of whom are still in the room learning from you. Thank you so much for your performances tonight. I'd like to thank the Laurie M. Tisch Illumination Fund, and Laurie Tisch in particular, who's with us tonight, for making this all possible. The Greene Space for bringing us back home again, and to all of you for being part of tonight. It's been an honor and a privilege, and we know and hope we'll see you again very soon. We're signing off for those of you on Zoom. We wish you could join us for a beer in the lobby, but next time. Over and out. Good night. Thank you so much.